Willkommen in der Kolonie, baby!
Hello everyone. Guess who's back? Well, I've been gone for quite some time. I had some kind of hiatus and had some personal business to do, and I moved and all that kind of shit, personal stuff. But now I'm back and I just wanted to try out something a little bit more different, less of a script like I did in the Gothic lore series, which is, by the way, not forgotten. I still have plans to expand on that. But today I wanted to go into some Gothic news. So for those who are not aware, there is a Gothic Remake Podcast, which is done by Kai Rosenkranz and Reinhard Pollice, the studio director of Alchemia Interactive. And they had some interesting things to say. So 2 episodes came out, and I say let's just dive in there and see what juicy bits they had for us. Well, first things first, they again confirmed that they're working on a remake, nothing else, a very faithful adaptation to the original, but some new additions will be made. For example, they want to fill plot holes, they want to fix open ends, elaborate backgrounds, and maybe also fixing logic flaws with new ideas. Well, that could mean a whole lot, but I had some examples, right? So when it comes to plot holes, I directly had the idea of the invocation of the sleeper, and after the invocation, Iberion would fall into a coma, and we all had this vision and went through the orc graveyard. But what originally was to happen is that Iberion would awake from his coma and relays his epiphany that the sleeper is an archdemon before he actually dies. And even though this voice line was recorded, it was never really implemented into the final version, even though you can find it in some mods, right? So then we've got open ends, and well, there is this one quest. I always wanted to know what's going on. Is there a resolution to it? And it was basically the quest Finding Neck, which ended very suddenly. And the aftermath with Fletcher, a fellow guardsman who took over Neck's position in the arena district, was never really resolved, We find the amulet, give it back to one of the shadows, and that's done, But what happened after that? I think they're gonna tackle that. Now, coming to backgrounds, and I see some very big potential for many characters and events in the world. For example, who was Gomez before his time in the colony? He's a very mysterious man. Or what about the origins of the castle, of the old camp, or the citadel on the mountain, or the temple in the swamp even? Maybe we get some new information about the sleeper temple. Well, there is surely enough material there, right? So the next thing they were talking about is how they handled the teaser. Alchemia basically collected all the data from the teaser feedback, made a spreadsheet, and went through all of it. Outstanding dedication for the project and also the fans to an extent. That was really, really good what they did. They also started talking about what makes Gothic so special. And Kai basically answered that first, setting and tone, that it's dark, gritty and violent and also relentless plays a big role for him, that makes this game so special to him, and that it has a very distinctive flair which is really important for him to recreate in the remake. Second, he says the vivid and living world in which NPCs and monsters behave accordingly to given situations. And the third point is that he likes the rewarding progression in terms of being weak at the start and then getting stronger gradually, Reinhard Pollice, the studio director, then said, well, he really likes the daily routines of NPCs and monsters and their reactive nature to their surroundings. Again, what Kai said. And he likes the true open world nature of Gothic, which basically has no invisible walls and all this. Well, the last thing, he's really into the rough dialogue. Then they went on to explain that the world is 50% completed, and that is in July of 2023. And I guess he's talking about the textures and doodads, trees, buildings and all that. Basically that kind of stuff that we can see in the trailer, or in the trailers, because we already saw two of them. One the old mine and one taking place in the old camp. From the teaser they basically scrapped everything except for some art assets, and I think it's just a good idea. Some of them were pretty good looking, like the mural of the Sleeper's mask, and yeah, why not reusing that, right? And we also get some information about who was really responsible for having this idea of a remake of Gothic, and it was a small team of people who pushed that idea, and Reinhard Pollice was one of them. They actually wanted to make some medieval RPG in the beginning, but then this idea quickly turned into the Gothic remake. Well, what a nice turn of events, right? I mean, we're pretty lucky that we're getting that after all those years, and the franchise seemingly dead in the water, right? The next piece of information is about the new combat system, or shall I say the old combat system? Well, they said it's based on the Gothic 1 and Gothic 2 combat. It has the same feel to it. Instant reactions, different kinds of attacks, attack chains, aka combos will come back. And just like in the olden days, it is based on rhythm. And I'm very, very glad to hear that, and that they decided for this combat, because it is a combat system that is very unique and that I have never seen in any other game that I played so far. Now we get some information about the soundtrack, and Kai explains that he already has more than 1 hour recorded. Compare that to the original, which had only 30 minutes of music. And he also goes a little bit into detail how he did this. He basically took the original soundtracks from Gothic 1, re-recorded it for better quality, but then also expanded on those tracks, so made them longer. And his intention was that you wouldn't, stand in the old camp and every 3 minutes the music would loop. I didn't really have a problem with that, but hey, when he's doing new stuff, why not? I think he's a great musician and a great composer. Well, I'm surely gonna check it out. Also, he said that there will be brand new soundtracks for the game, and well, I'm pretty much excited about that. In the end, they told us that still 40 people are working on the game. This information is a little bit older, if I recall correctly, but they also said that they are still looking for more people. So, well, if you are gifted and you know your stuff, maybe send them your CV via email, and hey, maybe you have the chance to work on this remake and make it a good fucking game, right? So, in the second podcast, they were talking about some different things, and they began with the design principles and how they are the foundation of the remake. And those principles are: first, the player chooses how to play. The different play styles will be emphasized. I guess they are talking about, do you want to be the archer archetype? Do you want to be the melee fighter or the mage or whatever? Or how are you going to play your character? Will you play him aggressively via the dialogue options? Will you lie? Will you be honorable? That's something that we will see in the future. The second principle is a living world. No scripts, but rather systems in which the player can partake in. That indeed sounds very, very interesting. And I think it was also done back in the day with Gothic 1. You had many situations where you were just seeing the reactions of the NPCs surrounding you. For example, to outside threats, maybe beasts and so. And I hope they're going to, refine this and make it even more immersive for us. And that's a good word, because third is the essential immersion. No tutorials, trust the player's intuition, and reward the player for exploring. Well, this is something that Gothic is really famous for, no hand-holding, and in nowadays gaming landscape, that is actually a bold step into the right direction, I think. I salute them for that. So, next thing they said is a little random information, but they said, well, Kai said that Herr Manelik by In Extremo was basically the inspiration for the old camp theme, and maybe that is hinting at something to come? Like there was no real confirmation, but hey, let's see. Next, they confirmed that the daily routines of monsters and NPCs are coming back. Well, of course, depending on the time of day, the creatures and inhabitants of the colony are doing different things. They sleep at night and, well, go on their business in the day, and that's just great to hear. Then they went on talking about the color palette of the teaser, and obviously it was way too colorful. And now they adjusted the color palette. Everything is more bleak like in the original. The old camp looks very dusty and earthy as seen in the trailer and also in the screenshots that were already released. Then the lead game designer Javi Ontoria says that they have clear guidelines on what Gothic is and what it is not. He did not really elaborate on that, but it would be very nice to know how these things are communicated. What is Gothic like and what is not Gothic like? Well, maybe we get some more information on that in the future. But at the end of the day, Reinhard Pollicher, the studio director, has the last word on these decisions made. So the next piece of information is about crafting and the professions, and they start with forging, and the step-by-step forging will be a thing, you know, the one that we know from the original. You need to heat the blanks, then work on them in the fire, hammer on the swords on the anvil, cool them in water, and finally sharpen them. But this time it will be more complex, and you will actually be able to craft more weapons. In the original, you could just craft simple swords and they were not really useful, and this is gonna be revisited indeed. Secondly, arrows can now be crafted. Hooray for all the archers out there. I don't really know about the resources which are needed for that, but hey, that is indeed good to know. Something more about food. They said that Snuff will indeed serve his famous meatbug ragu again, simply delicious, and maybe there is even some more food coming, maybe some, you know, cooking profession, but again, we'll see. And then they began talking about the trailer that we saw, obviously about the arena, which got expanded in size, and they wanted to emphasize its role in the old camp. They want the Ore Barons coming out of the castle, witnessing the spectacle down there. They want to add additional quests, and it won't be just an easy 1 versus 1, right? But they also want you to go on to fight creatures. How we saw in the trailer, there's a poor soul actually being roasted by a fire lizard. The next subject they're talking about is stealth, and to a greater extent, the thief skills. They want to redesign those and refine them. So they're obviously talking about stealth and pickpocketing and lockpicking. They didn't give any details on that, but I'm very, very curious on how that will work. On a little side note, everybody knows the barrel in the old camp in which you could, you know, step in and hide. Originally, it was planned that this barrel could be used as some kind of hiding spot when you were caught on a killing spree and people were chasing you. But this idea is out of the window. They said it would be too silly for this remake. And I say, hey, it was just well, indeed, some silly thing, a remnant of the past. I'm somehow okay with this idea being scrapped, but hey, some people will shed some tears about that. The next thing that I addressed actually in my first video about the teaser is the helmet and shield discussion. So I was totally against it, and now we have confirmation that both things won't be in the game. Shields would encourage a more defensive playstyle, but they wanted to keep the visceral combat of the original, and well, what can I say? I'm just glad that they decided against those. They were also talking about quests. Main quests in particular will be revisited and changed a bit here and there, but obviously, and this was a big letdown of the original game, they will now add new quests to the game. So everybody who played Gothic more than once realized that, well, once you've done all your side quests, there is only just the big main quest that you can follow until the end, and then the game is over. So it was lacking in the later chapters, but this is something that they are going to tackle, which I'm also very happy with. Then they showered us with more good news. They said that the UI will be looking like in the original game. It will be very simple, not to break immersion, not like having thousands of quest markers on your minimap, which is always visible on your screen. No, they don't want to do it, just like in the classic experience. And also they went on saying that while you pull up your inventory, the game is still going on, so it will not be paused. And this, I think, is also a big part of the original Gothic experience. Kai then gave us some new tidbits about the voice lines. He said that they will be all re-recorded. They can't use the old ones because they can't be changed anymore. And now that they are revisiting the old quests and change them a little bit, well, they need to be re-recorded to eventually change them. Well, the last information took me by surprise. A surprise to be sure, but indeed a welcome one. They said that they're going to introduce climbing walls, that is, for more vertical exploration. They didn't really say much about it, but hey, any new way to explore the colony is a really, really good thing to hear. What they haven't talked about, maybe we hear about that in the future, is the crouching function from the teaser, which I actually very liked. You could crouch in this small mine shaft and get to a secret area, but hey, maybe that's something for the future. I don't know. Well, for now, that's all. I don't have anything more. These are all the information from the podcast. I hope you liked it. Well, thank you for listening. This time around it was a little bit different. I didn't really have a script. I just took a few notes and I was talking freely, improvised a lot, and I hope you still like it. So I will see you next time with new material, and have a good one. See ya!